Snail Mail, Lindsey Jordan. We reviewed Lush a few years ago. We liked Lush a lot. Pristine, especially, I think, stands out from that album for me. I think that song is like an absolute masterpiece. And Snail Mail in general, I think, really just in the same vein as like someone like Soccer Mommy. I think really talented, unique voice, which in the sphere of indie rock women, there's a lot of sameness, and not always super interesting sameness. So really appreciating that Snail Mail always kind of finds something that stands out. Valentine came out, the single, a couple weeks back, and man, I freaking loved that song and still love that song. Definitely vying for the top 10 for me this year. So a lot of hype for me going into this album. Gotta say, I don't think it disappointed. I was pretty impressed with the album as a whole. And so now we get the album Valentine. And Dave, I'm always curious to see where you were at with this. Knowing you're not the biggest indie rock fan in general, how did you feel listening to Snail Mail's Valentine?
Yeah, so I wasn't like the biggest fan of Lush just because I thought it was a little soft for my liking, but I was quite impressed with Valentine. I thought it sounded really great. And it's nice to see someone on Matador Records kind of rise above and stand out. Because as you said, there's a lot of sameness with indie, especially
Mhm.
uh, female indie vocalists, right? Um, I think some of her label mates, Julian Baker, Lucy Dacus, everyone's kind of finding their niche, finding their little corner of indie and becoming stars in the
Yeah.
genre, right? And Snail Mail has been a minute, right? So, and yet she's only 22, so very impressive. Obviously, we'll watch her career with great interest, and I just thought this was like she goes pretty hard on some of these songs. I was quite impressed. As you said, the title track Valentine, that's a hard ass chorus. The
Yeah.
guitar goes. She's
Mhm.
jamming out in some of these. So I think there's several tracks that are really nice to revisit.
Yeah, the first two tracks are probably my favorite two tracks on the
Yeah.
whole thing. They both were singles, but Ben Franklin, the
Mhm.
bass on that is so
Yes.
like
The drum line.
plucky, modest, mousy that like I immediately perked up and was like, ooh, and especially switching that or having that right behind Valentine, which just like you said, the chorus goes so hard. The guitar in that, Lindsay is just absolutely shredding. It's just like a stark switch up, but both songs really, really work. Um, and you get a couple of those like typical indie rock ballads that are just like a guitar plucking along, but not many of them. And a lot of the songs vary up and have standout moments from time to time. Something like Forever stood out to me a lot. Just like that, like shifting like percussion in the background. I don't even really know how to explain it, but it's kind of like, but like it's drums somehow. I'm not even sure exactly what's going on there, but I really liked it. I liked Madonna a lot. Believe that was another single off this, but the guitar in that is just really good. And Lindsay obviously came up as a guitarist, and I think what Lush did was kind of show that she's more than just a performer in terms of guitar and can actually make some great songs and seems to be leveling up on this. So uh yeah, really, really pleasurable album to listen to. What other tracks stood out to you?
Yeah, the only track I really like didn't care for was Light Blue, just because it's obviously like the slow song on the album.
Yeah, that's
But
what I was
everything
referring
else
to.
other than that is at a much higher tempo, faster tempo, and usually has like really like big drums or like noticeable guitar. So like everything keeps your attention. Like a song like Glory, the guitar just comes in right away. It's nice and
Mm.
loud in a good way. I also liked Forever, as you mentioned, and yeah, Ben Franklin, man, like that 1-2 to start, up there with many good 1-2s this year. Like it's really great. Honestly,
I
this is
really
probably one of my favorite indie rock albums in a while. Honestly, like in terms of like front to back, liking just about everything.
Yeah. I really love her vocal delivery all throughout this. It's kind of like she's like every word is kind of all one word somehow. Like,
Mm.
especially on a song like Ben Franklin, like that chorus, like "Na, na, na, hey, like it just is like so good the way she does it. I feel like no one really sings exactly like that. And it's so distinct and really, really works. Um, but yeah, I'm really impressed with her, man, and I hope we continue to see her working and putting stuff out because we talk a lot about that space, and you mentioned how each person's kind of finding their own, but like you had to say Phoebe Bridgers is probably like the one right now in the space, but Lindsay feels like she's making a real push, and Soccer Mommy I felt like had the crown for a time. I mean, really, we don't need to compare them and say like one's better than the other, but I think just in terms of popularity
Mm.
or who I feel is making the most interesting stuff, it feels like those are the three that I keep coming back to a lot. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Julian Baker, really, really sad. Tough for me to get into, revisit all the time. That's not to say that there's not emotion on Valentine. I mean, if you listen to Ben Franklin, brief reference to Lindsay being in rehab about a year ago.
Mhm.
Tough to hear that from someone so young, but conversely, seems like she was able to find inspiration to write this album. Again, it's been several years since the debut, and she's so young. You would have thought we would have had the second album sooner, and yet going back to her childhood bedroom kind of brought the best out of her and got her writing again. Very similar to how Clairo's most recent album came to be recently. Pandemic and going back home seemed to work out well creatively. So obviously, Snail Mail top of the list in terms of people to pay attention to. There's a lot of names as you just said, but um, to make this at only 22 is quite impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Again, check out our Nostalgia Best of 2021 playlist where we'll probably be throwing Ben Franklin on there. It sounds like Valentine is already on that.